Hey everyone, I'm Chris Durst, co-founder of RatRaceRebellion.com. Welcome to Module 9 of our free online course about how to find and land legitimate work-from-home jobs and gigs. Today, we're talking about cover letters and also about how to explain gaps in your resume. And your cover letter can be a great tool for doing that. Cover letters today kind of get a bum rap, especially among younger generations of job seekers. Back in the day, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And back in the day, cover letters were definitely a thing. They were almost a must-have. And continued to be so for quite some time. And then they became less popular and people just sort of stopped doing them. But there's a reason why now I think it's time to circle back to them. And it has to do with applicant tracking software. If you watched module number 8, the section on resumes, you'll already be familiar with applicant tracking software. If you didn't, I encourage you to watch module 8. It's critically important to familiarize yourself with the software, the bots that make the decisions about whether or not your resume is ever going to be seen by human decision makers. I'm not going to go back over all of that information here, but it's definitely covered in Module 8. So before, in preparation for putting together this video for you, I actually wanted to get a sense of what people are saying about cover letters, in particular, younger generations. What are they saying about cover letters? And Reddit is a great place to go when you want to get a bead on what people are thinking about something in particular. And this is the first forum that I came across, or this first conversation. And it said exactly what I expected it to say. Cover letters are such a waste of everyone's time. And what other people say, I haven't made a cover letter in years. Most places couldn't care less. Recruiters admit they don't read them anyway, so why waste people's time? Not sure if this person has spoken with every recruiter, but this is one person's opinion. This person's sample cover letter is hiring manager. See attached resume. Sincerely, my name. Jobs that require cover letters have a bunch of people skipping applying to them because they suck. Over 50% of the time I've submitted this kind of cover letter. I don't know what their picture was of, and I got an interview. This person's saying that they've been using basically the same cover letter since 2005. I haven't written one since I was fresh out of school. And when hiring people, I've never read one. Anyway, so yeah, lots of negative opinions about cover letters here on Reddit.
Big mistake. Big. Huge.
And I can see where they're coming from. I disagree. And for the primarily, not expressly, but primarily for the reason that I just gave you, the number one reason right now to write a cover letter is because it can enhance your ability to get past the bots, and into the hands of human decision maker. And then if the human decision maker decides to read the cover letter, it's a great place to shine through. Let your personality shine through in a way that you can't in a resume. Resumes are data driven. You don't get a sense of personality when you're reading somebody's resume. You do when you're reading their cover letter. So if you have an extraordinary personality or an extraordinary tale to tell, it's a great reason to include a cover letter and not take the cover letter optional to heart. I don't usually do this, but I actually did put together sort of some PowerPoint slides to back up this module, just because there's a lot to say. And I want to make sure that I cover it all, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to digest everything. So I'm just going to pull that up here. So as I said, cover letters, in my opinion, should not be optional if you're serious about landing the job. Again, the primary reason is a chance to win over the bots. You can pepper your cover letter with keywords in a way that makes sense, obviously. But also it's a great way to showcase your personality and, as mentioned earlier, to explain resume gaps. I'm covering the cover letters first in this video because everybody, that pertains to everybody. Resume gaps don't necessarily pertain to everybody. So those of you who are looking for information about the resume gaps, you're going to find that later in this module. I'm going to give you 7 quick tips for creating a good cover letter that's going to make a difference. First of all, keep it brief. You don't want a cover letter that's more than 1 page long. 5 paragraphs is generally enough. You have your opening paragraph, your closing paragraph, which is your call to action. And then those couple of paragraphs in between are the meat of your message. All right. And that's where most of your keywords are going to come into play as well. You do need to, as with your resume, make sure that you're targeting the specific job, that you are writing this cover letter as it pertains to the job that you're applying for. As with your resume, it's okay to have a base cover letter. Have the foundation, have a boilerplate created that you can use to begin each cover letter. It doesn't have to be written from scratch every time, but if you have a solid base, you can go in and change just specific things as they pertain to the job. People will notice if you've taken the time to write something that's specific to that opportunity. Edit. If you're not going to edit, if you're not going to proofread, don't send the cover letter. It's not going to be beneficial if you do that. In speaking, I mean, we work with a lot of hiring managers from a lot of different companies, and they will always say that a sloppy, poor written resume or cover letter or anything, their feeling is if at this early stage where you're asking us to consider you for employment, you haven't taken the time to be careful, they have no reason to believe that you can take the time to be careful after you're hired. This is your first impression. It's your first impression. I mean, we've been told from the time we were little kids, first impressions count. First impressions count. And it's so true. It really is. And that definitely matters here. If you're not great at proofreading, have a friend proofread it for you. Use Grammarly. Do something that's going to help you really nail down something that's, if not perfect, very close. Okay. This one is really important because this is something that we've heard a lot about from hiring managers. Your cover letter and your resume, your application generally, needs to be about what you can do for the company. What do you bring to the company?
What can you do for me?
What do you want?
That's not to say that the company, once they hire you, will not respect you as an individual and will not care about your individual needs once you're hired. But at this early point where you want them to consider you for employment, they need to know what you can do for them. The rest will come later. This is not the time for whining. This is not the time to open with a paragraph that says, I was delighted to find this position and that it's work from home. I really need a job right now. I've been out of a job for a year. I need to be home with my 4 kids. This will give me an opportunity for flexibility so that I can do this. There's a lot of me and I in there, and that's not what you need to be getting across to a company at this point. You're not looking for charity. You're looking for a job. I guess that's the best way to put it. You're not looking for somebody to hire you because they feel bad for you, because that's not going to happen. You're looking for somebody to hire you because you will be an asset to their team, to their company. So, and it doesn't matter if you say it nicely, just because you say this job will be such a blessing for me and my family. It's well said, it's well put, but it's still about you. Okay. The about you comes after you're hired and you start to realize the benefits that the company might have for you as well. So, and I'm sorry, I know I went long on that, but it's only because I've heard so many complaints about it. So I'm passing that on to you. Don't apologize in your cover letter for any perceived skills gaps that you might have. Instead of saying something like, I don't have all the skills you're asking for, but instead, that's a negative. You're starting with a negative. I don't have. Instead, position it in a way that you do have. And we're just giving you an example here. I know sometimes a lot of people come out of working in a daycare or even taking care of their own children at home and feel that people don't understand what that involves. So help them understand what that involves. So turn it into a positive. Few things in life can prepare a person for dealing with unhappy customers, like handling a room full of unruly toddlers. My experience as a daycare provider has equipped me with the skills and patience to deal even with the most difficult to please customers. So in that one blurb, they're able to say, don't discount me. This person was probably applying for a customer service role or a role in which they were going to be dealing directly with customers, maybe some of whom would be unruly. They're saying, look, this is how the skill that you're going to see in my resume relates to what you need for me to do for the company. Much better phrase it as a positive, not a negative. You want them to go into your resume looking for the positives. And by the way, that's also a good reflection of that person's personality that they're not seeing as a negative. They're looking at what their takeaway was from that job as well. Number 6, spend a few minutes looking at the company website. Critically important. Get a bead on what's the company environment like. What do they do? What do they believe in? Educate yourself a bit on what they do, what the tone of the company is, and reflect that back if it seems appropriate and if it resonates with you as a person. And finally, bragging is okay. It's okay to talk about how great you are at something. Not in an egotistical way, but if you're bringing a lot to the table, it's important that they know that. A lot of us grew up in a time or in families when we were told that, it's not nice to brag. It's not nice to brag, Miss Chris. Don't brag. And that's something that a lot of us carry with us, even as adults. We feel guilty telling people how great we are at something. Everybody's fantastic at something. And if you can't talk about that when you are working on getting hired by a company, you need to work on that. Recognize what you're wonderful at and be comfortable saying it, even if you have to talk about yourself in third person until you get used to it. For the longest time, I really had issues with that. I still do. And there's that sort of fake it till you make it kind of attitude. Try to make yourself comfortable with it, even if it means you have to take a deep breath before you start and then break out in a sweat when you're done. Just work on that. It's okay. With regard to the resume itself, here are just some thoughts on getting that going. And every cover letter is going to be individualized. I can't give you a template cover letter because it needs to be about you. But what I can do is give you a couple of thoughts on how to start it, how to end it, and then what you put in the middle really needs to be something that you feel best reflects you and your fit with the company. You do want to make sure that it's impactful. You want to make sure that you're starting with a catchy opening statement. This is one that I actually saw on a cover letter that a woman had sent to us, and it made me smile. It made me feel really good. I felt like I kind of had an idea of who this person was as she wrote this. She says, I'm sure that, like myself, many web designers have heard that, and she had the company name in there, is a great place to work. I'm also sure that, like me, they have applied for the current opening and that you're currently buried under resumes. Finally, I'm sure that while my application is one of many, I'm not just another applicant. So right off the bat, she worked in that she's a web designer. She worked in that she knows and admires the company. And she also worked in that she's different. But she also worked in a whole lot of personality and attitude in 2 sentences. So I thought that was just kind of a really cool way for her to open. That reflects her personality. It may not reflect yours, but think about how you can reflect yours. And then just as I told you in your resume, you want to be able to focus on your accomplishments. And this is a great way to expand on those accomplishments. In your resume, you have sort of one line for each thing that you've accomplished. Here, you can expand on that a bit. It's okay to name drop in your cover letter if you can name drop in a meaningful way. I mean, if you're applying for a customer service job and you've met Denzel Washington, you don't want to drop Denzel Washington into your cover letter. That's really cool, but it doesn't help you get the job. Unless you did customer service in some way for Denzel Washington, it's not an appropriate fit. So, but if you know somebody within the company, if you've heard great things from somebody who works there, if you worked with a company that maybe is a competitor or partner of theirs, and you've worked with them directly, then weave that in, definitely. And make sure that you have a great finish or a call to action as well. Just as an example here, I'm excited at the prospect of contributing my strong communication skills to your team, and we'll look forward to discussing why I could be the ideal fit for your part-time customer service or customer representative role. Thank you for your time and consideration. People used to say, I will reach out within a week to check on the status of my resume. I will tell you, when you're applying for a home-based job, particularly if it's one of many, if you're applying for a home-based position and you're one of a few, let's say you're working in an executive team or you're applying for an administrative assistant, then you can handle this a little bit differently because you're probably the only one or one of a small number of people that they're hiring for that position. If you're hiring for a one of many position, let's say a company is hiring, they're ramping up their customer service team, and they're hiring hundreds of people or thousands of people, the last thing you want to do is call that company to check on your resume. Here's why. They're already inundated. They're going through everything. You've sent in a great resume. They will read it. They will read it if they receive it. And they will receive it if you meet all of the high points and you wrote a resume that will get past the applicant tracking software. We've been in business since it's almost actually be 25 years in January of 2024. And through those years, we've had so many HR managers say, can you remove our listing because we're getting inundated with phone calls from people who have submitted applications, and we're not, and it's taking so much of our time that we're not getting a chance to go through the resumes and applications that we've received.
Don't call me.
When you call, it may cause them to red flag your application. This is a person who got in the way of me performing the job that I needed to do. It's not the way that you intended, but it's really important throughout the whole application process that you're able to remove yourself from your situation and put yourself into the shoes of the other person. So that person is sitting at a desk for a company, looking at hundreds or thousands of applications and trying to find the ones that are the best candidates for the company. And while they're doing this, their phone is going and going and going and going. And they, for every one resume that they look at, their phone is ringing 5 times, and it's somebody who wants to know whether or not they've seen their resume. And if they have a few minutes to talk about the job, you can imagine how frustrating that is. It's like having a toddler while you're trying to cook dinner who needs everything at that time. Their mom, dad, whatever it is. It's that constant interruption, except they don't love you. You're not family. The toddler we can deal with. We're frustrated, but we can deal with it. when it happens enough, that person who's ultimately making a decision is going to associate your name with that interruption, and that's not a positive thing. So resist the impulse to pick up the phone and call and check on the status. And certainly, if you can't resist the impulse, don't do it within the first week. Wait until a week has passed. I still don't recommend it then, but I know that some people won't hear that and they're going to decide that they want to do it. Do it when the rush has subsided. I hope that makes sense. I can't begin to express the amount of frustration that we've heard over the years. There are a couple of really good companies. We can't even post their jobs anymore because of the behaviors of a few people. We're now not able to get their jobs out to the many. And that's just heartbreaking to us. And it's unfair to the other job seekers that don't get the opportunity because a few people dove in and handled things that way. And I'm not blaming those people because they may not have understood exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So I hope that helps people to better understand that. All right. So that's what I have to say about cover letters at this point. But I do want to talk about identifying transferable skills as a means of explaining your resume gap and helping you bridge that gap when you're talking to HR managers. So for the purposes of this module, I've identified a couple of types of gaps, and we'll use those as examples as we talk about how to explain them in your cover letter. The first one that I picked, because I've heard from a lot of people who have this issue, or this situation, it's not an issue, it's a situation, is people who have taken a break from working to take care of an older family member or to care for somebody who needs their help. And just to give a breakdown, what I'm looking for is transferable skills. What did you do during that gap of time when you weren't working in a traditional job? And believe me, I know you were working. I know you were working. You just weren't working in a traditional job. So what were you doing in that time that has created or given you or resulted in a transferable skill that it will be an asset to a hiring company? So I've identified just a few of those skills here that you may have developed as a result of elder care or caregiving. The first of which is problem solving. And just giving you a brief description here, caring for an older or ill person, of course, it can be rewarding, but really, really trying. There are a lot of things that you have to deal with every day, and I've just listed a few of them here. It might be changing health appointments. It's the swinging moods, which of course is going to help you in a customer service role. It's planning. It's just scheduling everything and just dealing with everything. Those of you who are doing it, that you're a problem solver. And so make sure that that's on your list of transferable skills. You're a problem solver. You're excellent with time management because, of course, you're managing social engagements, medical appointments, and other obligations, and you're juggling your own schedule as well as somebody else's. A lot of times when you're a caregiver, you're trying to manage the schedule of your family, the people you live with, in addition to the person that you're caring for. So yeah, you have mad time management skills. And then communication, because you're communicating with people on many different levels. So I wanted to expand on those a little bit in this particular one, but also take a look at how you're going to explain those in your cover letter. First of all, don't hide it. It's better to explain a gap in your cover letter than to just ignore it. A lot of people, they make the mistake of removing that gap from their resume altogether. So you might have a break in your resume from 2020 to 2023, because during that time you were doing something else. You were taking care of your children. You were whatever it was. You had this gap. And a lot of people will just not put it in their resume and then not bother to explain it in their cover letter. And so as an employer, what they're seeing is this unexplained gap. Were you doing something nefarious during that time? Why are we not putting this in here? So don't ignore it, but don't make it an issue either. So here's your chance to explain why that time that you took out of the workforce was a positive and not a negative. Be unapologetic and explain what you did and what you learned during that process. And let them know that you took that time on purpose. You weren't unemployed because nobody would hire you. This is something, it was a choice that you made. It was a decision that you made to do the thing that you did during that time. I think a lot of people who have gaps in their resume start to feel unemployable. They start to feel out of touch. And some of that comes just from not having had the camaraderie, the day-to-day stuff. They start to feel like they're living in a different place, a different country. It just, like they really don't know what they bring to the table anymore, and nobody's going to understand, and I'm no longer employable. It's easy to start feeling down about yourself, and you have to be really careful because that will make other people see you as lacking confidence, and a number of other things that are negative. So, here's an example. I left my customer service position with the company when I committed to becoming the primary caregiver to my elderly father as he underwent chemotherapy. Although I spent 18 months outside of the traditional workforce, I can say with all sincerity, my skills in managing time, details, and temperamental customers are now stronger than ever. So they took a perceived negative and turned it into really a positive. They, not only that, they're showing that they're an empathetic person. They're a caring person. This is somebody who was working in customer service, is looking for a role in customer service, who is obviously a very giving person. This is somebody who gave up 18 months of their career to take care of somebody else and did it in a meaningful way and turned it in their cover letter into something that an HR manager is going to understand, and it will likely resonate with them. Looking at transferable skills, let's take a look at parenting, because this is a big one. We hear from a lot of people who took time off to raise their children, at least get them up to a certain age. And without going into what the reasons are behind each of these, time management, negotiation skills, especially if you have more than one, communication skills, particularly in explaining complex ideas and processes in a way that's easy to understand, adaptability, schedule management and coordination, crisis management, budgeting. And I'm sure everybody who's been a parent understands all of those. And then weaving it into your cover letter. As you review my resume, you may notice a gap in my employment history. This represents the period I devoted to raising my children. Child rearing, being many jobs rolled into one, has enhanced my talents in leadership, teamwork, conflict management, negotiation, and time management. All skills that have fortified my already strong foundation and better prepared me to excel in your position. Do you see all the keywords weaved into that one paragraph? It's explaining the gap, but it's saying that gap benefits you because during that time, I fortified these skills that you're looking for. It's a positive. The gap in my resume benefits you, the company. You see how that works? All right, let's move on to the next one. Transferable skills from home-based educators. By the way, I'm using the term home-based educator as opposed to homeschooler. Whether it deserves it or not, homeschooling has both positive and negative connotations. Stick with the one that's generally positive, and that's home-based educator. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I think people have good reasons for doing what they do, and it's none of my business. So anyway, but what are the skills that come out of that can be transferred into a more traditional job? Research, record keeping, conflict resolution, negotiating skills, budgeting, resource allocation, project management, setting realistic goals, following through with plans, time management, needs assessment, setting priorities, delegation, empathy, monitoring. So again, lots of good stuff there, transferable skills. And by the way, these are things, if you're working on your resume still, or you want to go back and tweak your resume, make sure that you put some of these into the skills area of your resume. And you can always, if you have a gap in your resume, you can create a job title for that time. You can put in home-based educator, work from home, and the dates that you did it, and then put in the things that you accomplished in your resume so that you don't have a physical gap in your resume. Put it in, pepper it with keywords. Some people do it, some people don't. If you don't put it in your resume, then do make sure that you put it into your cover letter so that that gap is covered. Weaving it into your cover letter. As an experienced home-based educator, I leverage my listening and communication skills daily, and I'm confident in my ability to motivate and engage people of all personalities, moods, and goals. So again, there's some good keywords in there, and it shows how what I did as a home-based educator can benefit the company. And here's another example. This person took time off to travel. And actually somebody had sent this to us years ago with their cover letter and resume to see what we thought. And I loved it. Don't let the gap in my work history fool you. For the past X years, I've traveled extensively and immersed myself in the different cultures of the U.S. and countries around the world. Through these experiences, I've interacted with people from all walks of life, and in turn, I've built my already strong communication skills. They could have weaved in more keywords, but they did an excellent job of explaining what they were doing that time. And if they're looking for a job in a company that works with a variety of cultures, absolutely it makes them a valuable and more valuable asset to the company. So, I mean, those are the things that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of your cover letter. Again, I can't tell you what to put in your cover letter. I've given you the ideas on what you want to make sure that you weave into it, that you're taking full advantage of the keywords that the company is presenting in their job description and mirroring them in a, not a weird way, like don't just throw them in there if they don't really mean anything, but to weave them in if they accurately reflect what you're bringing to the company and what you can do for them. And again, for those of you who have gaps in your resume, show the benefits of what you learned during those gap times to the company, because most people who take time off, even if it's for their own illness, learn something valuable that they bring forward that enhances who they are and makes them an even more valuable hire to the company. Don't discount what you bring to the table. Don't prejudge yourself. Make sure that you package what you bring to the table in a favorable way, and it will be received in a favorable way. That's it. Everyone have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.